Thank you. As I cranked up my car on the way here just a little while ago, the song "Hey Mr. Spaceman, Take Me Away" came on. How many of you are feeling like, "Hey Mr. Spaceman, take me away"? It's been very intense, and as long as you remember that we're all in this together, it isn't quite so personal. We realize that we're all stumbling our way to enlightenment and doing the best we can to stay sane during times like these. So as you're all aware, today was the longest lunar eclipse of the 21st century in Aquarius. I want to set a little context for it because we're between the eclipses. We had a solar eclipse on July 12th, the lunar eclipse today, and then the third eclipse, solar eclipse, on August 11th. So this lunar eclipse today is the midpoint between these two solar eclipses. The solar eclipse on the 12th of July sets the tone for this lunar eclipse, because a solar eclipse is like a new moon, and a new moon always sets the tone for the month to follow. It gives you the foundation for what's to unfold in the next month. The last solar eclipse was at 20 degrees of Cancer, and it was even though it was a partial eclipse, it was a very powerful one, because the moon was at her closest approach to Earth. So we had what's called a super new moon. On top of that, the moon rules Cancer. So it was a triply powerful solar eclipse. So I'd like to give you a little insight on the nature of Cancer. The astrological signs unfold as an evolutionary process. They may seem to be separate, but they're actually stages of evolution. Aries, Taurus, and Gemini leading up to Cancer, we explore a new domain of ourselves, a new aspect of our being, a new domain of consciousness. It's very experiential, the first three signs, and by the time we arrive at the evolutionary phase of Cancer, our emotional bodies, the moon, the lunar current, the mother principle, begins to awaken. We seek a place on planet Earth that feels safe. Cancer is naturally associated with our home, how deeply we feel protected, nurtured, and welcomed here on planet Earth. So whenever the sign of Cancer is involved, it involves your inner circle, those with whom you're most intimately connected, and those with whom you feel most nurtured, welcomed, and safe. So the eclipse in Cancer suggests a turning point of these emotions arising from Saturn opposite in Capricorn, of paying attention to and giving credence to our emotional need to feel safe at home and nurtured by those in our intimate circle. So we may have found ourselves defining and clarifying who in fact is a part of that inner circle. Relationships blossoming or ending in order to secure our place on planet Earth. Has anybody experienced that in the last couple of weeks? Yeah. A few hands raised. So underneath, or embedded in that experience of being emotionally welcomed by Mother, by a home here on planet Earth, is actually feeling welcomed on planet Earth herself. So when the sign of Cancer is involved, it can indicate a relationship to a power spot on planet Earth, where you feel most at home. When you are guided to a true power spot suited to your nature, or that stage of your growth, you'll walk into that area and just feel like you just landed at home. You're just welcomed. So beyond our personal relationship to those close to us in our inner circle is our relationship to the place that we're living in. And many of those of us who don't feel like we've fully come from planet Earth, that we're from elsewhere, have been somewhat challenged in feeling welcomed on planet Earth, feeling that we belong here, that we have as much a right to be here as any other human on this planet. Does anyone have a struggle with that? Yeah. That's the solar eclipse in Cancer. So when you are guided to a power spot that welcomes you, the immediate emotional experience is that you're welcomed here on planet Earth, that Mother Earth is welcoming you. She's opened her arms and given you a place to be, a place of power. So the emotional relationships we have with those in our inner circle are just an extension of that. So that has set the tone for this current unfolding eclipse cycle that has taken 2 weeks to come to maturity. And a full moon, when the moon is full, if you imagine where she is in relationship to the sun and the earth, she's on the opposite side of the earth, looking out toward the outer planets. So she's actually drawing us out beyond our comfort zone to involve ourselves in a bigger picture. So when we have a lunar eclipse, then that need to be drawn out of our inner circle into our outer circle is even more intensified. So if we have managed in these last 2 weeks to anchor into our deep emotional sense of well-being and belongingness here, that we really have found our power spot and that we have a platform or a place of power from which to emerge, then that creates the foundation upon which then you can then have a springboard to participation in the larger circle. So the reason that this particular eclipse is so long is because the moon is at her farthest point away from the Earth, which is called her apogee. So she's much smaller than usual. We have a mini full moon. The Earth herself is just 3 weeks beyond being as far away from the sun as possible also. So your shadow is longer and more extended. So it's created this very extended lunar eclipse phase. The lunar eclipse in Aquarius is actually conjunct Mars. So if we had been able to witness the actual lunar eclipse, we would have seen the moon turn blood red. And then right below it, to the right, well, to the right for you, down here below, would be this bright, shiny red object. So a red moon and a red Mars, almost at his brightest.
A friend from Australia sent me that picture this morning.
Okay, yeah, which was like, whoa. The red is being really emphasized. This is why it's called the blood moon.
Incredible.
It's absolutely amazing. It's mind-blowing. And does anyone know why the moon appears to be red during the lunar eclipse? Well, if you imagine yourself standing on the moon looking back at the Earth, you'd see this giant black hole, the Earth, with a red ring around it. Those are all the sunsets of planet Earth. Because as the sun passes the Earth, it is spent by the Earth's atmosphere. The light is slowed down so that only the red lower frequency light can pass through it. So we have all the sunsets around the Earth. We have this giant black hole with this ring of fire around it. So where this bright, brilliant star, the sun, was, we're looking at this black hole with this red fire around it. Now, if you feel what I'm saying, this is going to be kind of intense to be a lunar inhabitant. But, you know, in reflection, that's what we experience here also. But it only lasts for 2 hours, or at this time 4 hours. And then the moon emerges in her brightness. But because the moon is so small now, being so far away from the Earth, this is still a mini full moon in the sign of Aquarius, which is associated with our friendship circle, our networks. So you can see how that creates a counterpole to what I just described about Cancer being an inner circle. Capricorn, opposite Cancer, is your professional outer circle. And then following it is the next phase of evolution is your friendship circle, Aquarius. So this is really an opportunity for us to be drawn out from our inner circle, having established that foundation, and to begin to share the depth of our belongingness with others, and include and invite others to feel the same experience of belonging to a family, an extended tribe. Whenever the Mars and Moon get together, it's kind of an active emotional time of really pushing the limits, but what's slowing that down somewhat is Mars is retrograde. It's going backwards, right on the lunar south node, which is also going backwards.
Isn't Mars super close to the planet Earth right now as well?
Yeah, it's making its closest approach on July 31st. The opposition has just occurred. Sun opposite Mars. And every full moon, if you imagine again the astronomy of it, the moon is looking outward toward the outer planets, which would be the first celestial he meets. She meets going outward. Wouldn't it be Mars? So Mars and the moon are together right now during this lunar eclipse. So the moon is really being drawn, our emotional natures are really being drawn to explore new domains, because Mars, being outside the Earth, looking toward the outer planets, is the adventurer saying there's all these unknown states of consciousness and experiences out there for us to explore. And Mars is like wanting to leapfrog into the unknown.
And they've got liquid.
Yes.
Just
But
found
each celestial, represents a new domain of consciousness. So there's a whole exploration that Mars then triggers. The intensity of this particular lunar eclipse is accentuated by the fact that we have what's called a grand square formed in the sky right during the eclipse. That was exact this afternoon at 1:20, basically from about just before noon to about 3 or 4. So we're passing the intensity point of it. But looking at the phase relationships again of the evolutionary aspect of astrology, when we have an opposition, at the conjunction, it sets a new cycle in motion. It's like a first house signature, a seed. And then that celestial will travel all the way around through the first 6 phases and then reach opposition. At that point, the personal development aspect has been realized. We've really been realizing a new aspect of ourselves through the last 2 weeks. At the opposition, it begins to enter 7th house relationship to that original celestial, in this case the moon to the sun, opposition. And then at that point of the full moon, there's a template that's set that describes what we should share from the personal realizations we've made in the first 2 weeks about this new domain of awareness that we've entered into. So this template of the full moon lunar eclipse sets the tone of what we, in the abundance of our being, then share with others for the next 2 weeks, leading up to the second solar eclipse on August 11th. Whenever we have a grand square present, it's a signature of dynamic action. It's like being in a hurricane of forces that demands that you take your power and come to your center. As much as we would like to retreat, head for the hills and disappear, the grand square always demands that we take our place, have the courage to take our power, and act with courage from our center. The celestials involved are the moon conjunct Mars, as I said, in Aquarius, squaring Uranus in early Taurus, squaring the moon north node, or the sun north node in Leo, And then the fourth point is a recently discovered Kuiper belt object called Typhon. He's an early Scorpio, completing the grand square. Typhon has a 230-year cycle. So this is his positioning himself in Scorpio none of us have experienced in this incarnation. Typhon, as you might already feel, is connected with typhoons. That's where the word typhoon came from. And Typhon in Scorpio particularly is the underworld, really challenging us to, through potential chaos, to become aware of the immortal nature of our being. So as you may have noticed, the world scene has gotten pretty chaotic with threats of nuclear war and the world teetering on the edge financially, not sure where chaos is going to emerge that threatens our very existence. So some, particularly with those who have a signature in early Scorpio, or any of the fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, or Aquarius, may feel like the chaos around you is becoming really challenging to the point where you either take your power or die. Because whenever Scorpio is involved, you take your power or die. How many of you felt like you've really been challenged to take your power and just really not be concerned about the outcome? Because when you are connected with your soul, with the immortal aspect of your being, you're not concerned about the outcome. You know that you have to take a stand in the integrity of your being and know that there are greater forces involved than you can possibly imagine that will steer you in a way that enables and empowers you to do your part, your little part. Just be happy and honored to do the part you're given, and know that the bigger picture is in the hands of those much more advanced than we are. Once I made that aware breakthrough, then I could really relax and give my full attention to the small part I was given and not be so overly concerned about the big picture. Have any of you been shaking in your boots a little bit about the state of the world? Well, the state of the world is doing exactly what it needs to do to give us an opportunity to awaken to our true power.
Excuse me, could you pull the microphone closer to you a little bit?
Can you hear me now?
There's a lot of noise from the machine.
Okay.
Thanks.
I'm going to be eating the microphone here. Okay.
Thanks.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the times between eclipses, in general, always mark turning points, points of no return. And the Leo eclipse in August 11th, will mark a culmination point that kind of sums up the first two eclipses. Being in the sign of Leo, it marks an opportunity for the emergence of our inner fire, the star within. We've located our power spot. We've identified those who are true members of our inner circle. The next 2 weeks we will extend ourselves into the outer circle of our networks and friendships, of community. And then by the August eclipse, we will have an opportunity to identify and recognize our true creative power, our solar power, the star within. And from that point onward, we then begin to shine brightly in ways that have been defined and clarified through the month before. What's intensifying this opportunity is Mercury just having gone retrograde in Leo. So Mercury actually entered Leo at the end of June, and then went retrograde on the 26th of July. That was actually Wednesday it went retrograde, on the 25th late here. in the evening. And Mercury by nature has its most challenging time in Leo, because the Mercury himself is the art of communication, how we reach out to another, how we hear another clearly so that we can then respond to what's been spoken and shared, and then share our own insights with another in a flowing way, a back and forth. Mercury in Leo is saying you need to be the loudest voice in the room, why in medicine, to get you to have your voice heard, and if you're not being heard, shout even louder, or roar even louder. Now, I was talking about this to a friend, and this phrase, lion medicine and the art of confrontation, came through. How many of you are comfortable with confrontation? We have one hand raised. He was a monitor at Spring in charge of confronting people about going into the meadow. So you had plenty of practice in that. There's an art to confrontation that will free you from fearing confrontation. Because what usually occurs is that you'll start feeling uncomfortable about a situation that you need to speak up about. But because you fear the shadow aspect of confrontation, you'll hope that it goes away on its own, which it usually doesn't, and then it builds into a real confrontation, and World War III breaks out, reconfirming your fear of confrontation. Anybody get caught in that cycle? So what I've learned with the art of confrontation is to be willing to be uncomfortable and act at the early stage, when it just starts being uncomfortable, and open a dialogue at that point where I'm deeply concerned about not undermining another person's self-respect. At that point, I don't need to make the person wrong. I speak from my own truth. It's an opportunity to clarify and reveal who I am and how I'm feeling, without investment in the response from another. That's the Mercury in Leo. Mercury in Leo is declarative power. It's declaring who you are, like a lion would when he roars, or she roars. But you can do so in a way in which you offer the person you're communicating with plenty of room and space to disagree, to open their hearts and really hear what you're having to say, and then offering an opportunity for that same brilliance to shine in the other. Whenever I'm in an environment of confrontation, I'm deeply concerned about, like I said earlier, not inadvertently undermining the self-respect of another to the point where they naturally withdraw in a defensive posture. So this is the art of confrontation, and once you learn how to speak and shine that light brightly, reveal yourself, declare yourself in a loving manner without judgment or expectation from another, then you'll find that declarative process then opens the way for deeper understanding to occur between those you love. And the more you practice this, the better you'll get at it. But I came to the point where I'd rather keep my mouth shut than undermine another person's value or self-respect, because I didn't feel like I was being heard. So when I had that deep sense of care for another, even if I could speak loudly, I was very careful about the words I used and how I spoke, the tenor of my voice, and being very, very clear about speaking my own truth. This is my truth. It may not have anything to do with you. So once you learn to dance in that uncomfortable environment in a declarative way, in a way in which empowers another and supports their well-being, then you'll lose your fear of confrontation. And you'll have the ability then to be heard and express yourself without the fear of the dark side of confrontation drawing you into an unwitting battle with another. But the key here is not looking to the other to confirm who you are or to agree with who you are. You're just making a declaration about where you are, where you stand, how you're feeling at the moment, and then letting it go after that. Is that clear? Any questions about that? Because during this Mercury retrograde, we will have plenty of opportunity to practice.
So when you get in a position and you think that some flow adjustment is going to nip a full-blown confrontation in the bud, you act as a cosmic traffic cop.
Yeah.
When you see it on the horizon, you go with the flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're offering another person an opportunity. And if you are in a position of authority, then Mercury and Leo will command you to speak, the truth about a situation needing to stop, without any question. There's no dialogue there. But in general, in terms of our human relationships, we don't want to show up as a cop.
Right.
We want to just be clear in who we are, be able to declare the beauty and being of our present state, without expecting the other to agree with it or go along with it. And then once we've declared who we are, and we know it's clear to another who we are, you give them plenty of room to make their own decision about what you just declared about yourself, without any investment in their choice.
Sure. Yeah.
That's the art of confrontation at its highest stage. There are times where, if real harm's being done, then confrontation is required, where it's a one-way street. This will stop.
Yeah.
But in general, with the Mercury and Leo, this is more of a declarative time of revealing, because whenever Leo's involved, your solar nature is being revealed. You're shining a light, bright light, out to others about who you are. So this is, in contrast to the Mars retrograde in Aquarius, is a balance point. But there's a fine line between that. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but once you get what I'm saying, you'll find yourself practicing that in a way in which you're not drawn into the drama of others and the choices they make. So this has been going on for the last month, and Mercury will cross the Lion's Gate 3 times. August 7th is generally celebrated on August 8th, the Lion's Gate. It's the exact midpoint between the summer solstice and the fall equinox. It's the maximum expression of our personal power, our creative power, the sun in Leo, to really enjoy the star nature of our being. Mercury has already going back and forth over that 15 degrees of Leo point. So we've been having an extended opening of the Stargate portal with this Mercury position. There was a pretty marked turning point July 12th, but bracketing that solar eclipse on the 12th, Mercury conjuncted the lunar eclipse point. Mercury conjuncted the Lion's Gate on July 10th, and then this upcoming solar eclipse degree in August on July 14th. So bracketing that early July eclipse, we had Mercury involved in our first opportunity to practice the art of confrontation. Mercury will come back to the Lion's Gate degree on August 10th, the day before the final eclipse, and then go direct and conjunct the Lion's Gate one more time, August 26th. And Mercury conjuncts this upcoming August 11th solar eclipse point on August 15th, and then again on August 29th. So you can see how Mercury is extending not only the Lion's Gate portal, but the eclipse portal of August 11th. So we have plenty of time here to identify and connect with our own lion's medicine. The courage to reveal ourselves in a way in which empowers others. Because Leo is always asking you to shine big, bold, and bright. There are ways to shine big, bold, and bright without intimidating others. There are ways to shine that brightly in a way that encourages others to find their own light and shine brightly as well. There are other ways in which you feel that, when you look at the sun, you can't look at it for too long because it dominates your eyesight. So this gives us an opportunity, especially as a counterpoint to the Mars and Aquarius retrograde, to emerge with our own unique creative identity and reveal ourselves to others in the brightness of our being. Because the Aquarian emphasis, Mars and Aquarius retrograde, is really asking us to, in a way, search out our ancestors. One of the Sabian symbols for this particular lunar eclipse is connected with our ancestors. It's the Council of the Ancestors, according to Linda Hill. And Aquarius is co-ruled by Uranus and Saturn. And Aquarius generally is our pull toward a future more enlightened state of being, more enlightened society. But Aquarius can also relate to our search for or contact with enlightened societies from the past. Those more advanced civilizations that have inhabited planet Earth before us and that we may have participated in. So it's either the distant past or the far future. So many of us are being challenged and being present with the current state of affairs and realizing how far distant we are from that enlightened future that we know is real, because some of us may have actually been present in more enlightened societies in previous incarnations, and we're pulling that knowledge forward now, particularly with Mars and Aquarius retrograde, finding others with whom we may have been connected in those more enlightened societies or cultures, and preparing them in September to begin to move forward with new ways of being with one another as a collective, as a network society. So this is a time for research. Whenever planets are retrograde, it's a time to experiment, particularly with Mars and Aquarius, to experiment with new ways of networking and being with one another, new models of society, new models of what may awaken humanity to a more enlightened state in general. Now, it's interesting that Aquarius does rule electricity, and particularly the computer industry and networks in general. And Facebook just had its biggest loss in its entire history. And the biggest single day loss in the entire history of the stock market of one company. So that's kind of the Mars retrograde of taking things apart. Twitter is down by 20%, and people are just like disoriented right now. They're not sure what model to emerge with in the future, knowing the present models aren't quite working as well as intended.
Sticks and stones are pretty good.
Yeah. So.
It's reliable.
That just happened.
But what the strange thing is, so I've had a flood of friend requests on Facebook. It's like just boom, everybody just flooding in as a friend request now. So you can find that those who have lost contact with you in this lifetime or another are finding you somehow. And there's a whole new wave of interesting relationships and connections emerging out of seemingly the blue. But during the retrograde season, particularly now with Mercury and Mars retrograde, it's very important to stay with the process, be teachable, be flexible in the outcome, because both Mercury and Mars are in fixed signs, so we tend to take a stand and not be very flexible and movable. But the midpoints of these grand square celestials are all in the mutable signs, which suggests the outcome, the way in which to navigate this tremendously powerful hurricane of forces. is to be teachable, flexible, and move with the spirit, and not be completely and totally bound to any particular idea of the way things need to be in the outer world. You can be very clear about your intent, about your integrity, who you are, and where you take a stand. But the means through which to achieve that outcome needs to be held lightly and be and open to the unexpected intervention of higher forces that change the picture on a dime, because Mars has been squaring Uranus all summer. So as soon as you think you know where things are going, some unexpected person or event just completely flips the light switch and changes the picture on a dime. And this is like a signature of enlightenment. Because those, we tend to get fixed and stuck in particular ways of being that we are familiar and comfortable with, that keep us circling within a particular domain of consciousness without leaving room for the unexpected. So when the unexpected intrudes into our lives, we're thrown off balance, we're shocked, but we're also given an opportunity to explore a whole new way of being that we hadn't even considered before. So be willing to be surprised by the interventions that occur in your life and on the planet that open up whole new ways of insight and being with one another, particularly in a collective way. So do we have any questions or insights at this point? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the art of confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, for me, it's like the lion, you have a lion's face, really courageous and sharp. The mane is filled with flowers. So for me, when I need to confront somebody, learning to have a courage, but I'm doing it with grace.
Mm-hmm.
This past week has been really odd. I'm sorry to say this to the men, but I have been around so many men that are so, not none of you here today, but like really angry and aggressive, and like the one day I was somewhere, someone was grabbing stones and just throwing them everywhere, and it's like, so even when you try to approach somebody very gracefully, they're still in their own world. Maybe they don't want to hear what I say. They're in their own world.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like, I don't know, why even bother? I know I'm not to change anybody, but it's like,
Yeah, there is a point where if a person is losing it to the point where they're about to do real damage to themselves or another, then intervention is called for. And if you don't have the personal power, then you grab someone else to help you.
So you bring that tribe.
Yeah, because that situation and opportunity been pointed out to you by the Spirit is an opportunity to offer resolution, not just for yourself, but for that person who's lost their way. Because anyone who damages another is also damaging themselves. Because at a certain point they will awaken to their unconscious behavior and feel very great guilt about it. So when I step into a situation that requires confrontation, I'm not doing it just for myself. I'm doing it as much for the other person whom I care about as I am for myself, to prevent them from not only harming others but harming themselves. But in those cases, there are those who are qualified to step in and confront if necessary, to put a stop to the behavior and offer that individual an opportunity to come to their senses. Is that clear? Yeah. But if you approach them again, with frustration or anger or judgment about their behavior, then they'll go into a naturally reactive mode. I see a brother or sister who's lost their way. I'm concerned about them as well as myself, because they just lost it. They may actually have spirits in them that they're not even aware of. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
try and discern whether you can be of service or not in that regard. When somebody's really over the top, over the line, about ready to cause harm.
Yeah, and you know, I'd be asking myself whether I'm qualified to step in.
That's an important.
Because sometimes it's important to give that person the space to go through their own initiation with the experience. It's a judgment call. But like I said for you, brother, as well, you know, if you don't feel qualified, then find someone who is. And don't feel like you have to do it alone. Because there are always those you can call in as allies for support in addressing a situation that's about to really harm someone. Because if you're just doing it as an individual, then that person, you know, will tend to experience you as the enemy.
Yeah.
But if you have 2 or 3 people with you, then they're just invited into the tribe, you know, and they're given an opportunity to tone it down. Yeah. But you know, what I've learned in the refinement of this art of confrontation is always to, under the undertone of my being, is always offering them an opportunity to come to their senses, and not making them wrong. Their behavior's wrong, but I care about them, and in being present as an intervener, giving them the opportunity to awaken out of their own trauma. And I'll watch for that, and if it's not taken, I'll walk away, unless serious damage is about to be done. Then I'll look for those with whom I can confront the situation on a more determined level. But you know, I'm suggesting from my own experience how I've learned to refine and lose my fear of confrontation. Each one of you, particularly the women in the room, may find different ways to do that. Because women by nature are more disarming than we are anyway. But you know, the art of confrontation is a theme for the next month, with Mercury being retrograde and then going direct in Leo, back and forth over the Lionsgate. And you know, the art of confrontation is just in revealing your light, declaring yourself. So, and when you get to the higher levels, it's no longer even confrontation. It's just declaring who you are, opening the space for someone else to really see you by declaring who you are, and then leaving plenty of space for them to decide what to do about it. You've done your job, now you can walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Okay, now if that wasn't enough, as I mentioned in my last talk, the second week of August, leading up to the solar eclipse, we have what are called yods forming by Mercury and the Sun in Leo to Neptune and Pluto. Neptune and Pluto set the tone for the general awakening of the human race. Neptune and Pluto are actually re-entering what's called the long sextile in the 2020s. Whenever we have 2 planets in sextile, once 6th of the circle away from one another, there can be a 3rd planet opposite them that creates a Y configuration called a yod, or a finger of God. Now, as these Neptune-Pluto sextiles tighten in the 2020s, the yods will get even stronger, but they're beginning to form now. And a yod to Neptune and Pluto suggests the download of the higher power concerning the greater destiny of the unfolding consciousness of the human race in general. And in Leo, that would be individual humans like you, through the declaration of your own being, the starlight within you, revealing a new, more conscious and enlightened aspect of the greater awakening of humanity unfolding. So you may find yourself positioned in a place to really declare your truth, your beingness, show up brilliantly, and in that way reveal to others around you an opportunity to awaken the starlight within them, become more conscious and aware citizens of the human race in general. So the Mercury will form the Yod from Saturday the 4th of August through the 9th of August. And then the Sun will reach the Lion's Gate on August 7th. And then enter the Yod to Neptune and Pluto on the 8th through the 11th, right to the solar eclipse. So the August 11th solar eclipse will be at the tail end of the Yod that's been ongoing for the week previous, with the Lion's Gate in the middle. So the second week of August is quite profound as an time of emergence, preparing us to really take a position of power, with the solar eclipse being a giant punctuation point to saying that, or suggesting that we can no longer deny the radiant star, the brilliance of our being, and hide in a corner any longer. We need to learn how to declare ourselves with the great brilliance of the starlight within, without fearing being drawn into contest or confrontation with others around us, because we expect others to agree or support us. So there's a certain way you can do so and say, I'm just going to reveal who I am. What you do with it is none of my business. It's my time to just show myself and reveal more of who I am to you or others around me. And it becomes a beautiful process then of then being surprised by the outcome. But the second week of August will be really almost fated events that just put you in the spotlight, let's put it that way, where you have no choice but to show up big, bold, and bright. So start practicing roaring like a lion, and make sure you brush your teeth so you don't have bad breath. Any more questions or comments? I think everybody wants to get up on the mountain. Okay, brothers and sisters, much love.